Hi, my name is Kathryn Boxmeyer, and I'm a sophomore majoring in finance and accounting. My project director is Dr. Michael Price in the Department of Economics, Finance, and Legal Studies. Today, I will be sharing what entrepreneurs of seed and pre-seed companies are looking for in accelerator programs. Okay, so imagine you're an entrepreneur and you have this great idea. Your main goal is to turn your great idea into a great business and into something profitable. This starts by going from the idea stage to an IPO, or an initial public offering, where your company is on the publicly traded stock market. So starting in the idea phase, you would identify the problem and brainstorm a solution. In the pre-seed phase, you build and test the first version of your idea and develop a minimum viable product. In the seed phase, you need to prove that the product works and that there is a real demand for it. In Series A, the main goal is to scale the product and the business model to achieve repeatable growth. You continue to do this until you achieve the IPO stage. Because we are wondering what entrepreneurs want in an accelerator program, which is traditionally the pre-seed and seed stages, our goal is to determine. In 2009, there was about 20, and now there's 2,500. But not all accelerators are created equal, and not all attract the same level of entrepreneur interest. We want to look at what specific factors within an accelerator make founders want to join and how much value they place on each of these elements. One of the cornerstone features of any accelerator is a mentorship. This can be a business mentorship or advise on what sector that they're in, and many accelerators also include educational workshops covering topics like marketing, intellectual property, legal structure, and financial modeling. Many accelerators offer office or co-working spaces, which provide startups with infrastructure they may not be otherwise able to afford. This can range from open office spaces or private office spaces, as well as workplaces and meeting rooms. Another defining feature is access to funding. Most accelerators end in a demo day or a graduation event where startups pitch to investors, corporate partners, and media, gaining unique access as well as unique access to investors through the accelerator program. So why pre-seed and seed companies? Accelerator programs focus on pre-seed and seed companies because they have an idea but need help carrying it out. They are at such an early stage that the short but intense nature of the accelerator makes the greatest impact here. Often, accelerator programs are early-stage tech, AI, or healthcare. So the product idea comes from strong and smart entrepreneurs who don't have a strong business background. So the accelerator program can teach the business skills to be able to pitch to investors. These relatively small investments in the program can be extremely profitable if the company makes it big. So even some companies making it and some not still allows investors to fail more times than they succeed and be profitable. Also, in this pre-seed and seed stage is when a lot of companies either succeed or they fail, and so an accelerator program teaches them to learn if the company that they have is a strong company and worth pursuing, or if it's better to cut their losses and pursue a different idea. So what is our goal? We're paired with Deloitte Japan and a developer and existing accelerator program to build a customized accelerator program in Osaka, Japan. Our goal is to understand what will bring international entrepreneurs to Osaka, Japan to join this specific accelerator program, and we plan to do this by using a choice experiment. This picture shows a very similar choice experiment given by my project director in a study to determine what affects investor interest in a startup. In a choice experiment, participants are shown multiple options. In this case, hypothetical startups, and asked to choose between them. So for example, would you pick startup 1 or 2, or 1 and 3? By observing their choices across many comparisons, we can infer how much they value certain features relative to others. For example, if a participant consistently chooses accelerators that offer mentorship, but not necessarily ones that offer fancy offices, we can quantify how much mentorship matters in their decision-making. So here's a real-life example. We have person A and person B. Person A is asked to pick between a white sedan and a black SUV, and person B is asked to pick between the same white sedan and a red race car. To make sure that these results are unbiased, we randomize all the variables across participants. what the effect of the characteristic is separate from all the other characteristics. So we can see that if person A picks the black SUV, it might be because they prefer the color black, or depending on what the brand is. And for example, if person B is going to pick the white SUV, when we factor in price, the red race car might be a nicer car, but are they willing to spend the money on this? So we can learn results through the choice experiment by seeing how often the probability of that the item is picked. So when firm age is randomized at 20%, we can see that a firm that's 4 years old is picked 25% of the time, whereas a firm that's less than 1 year old is picked 15% of the time. So we can see that participants are attracted to established firms significantly more than new firms. The same goes for revenue. When it's hard-coded as a yes 50% of the time, we can see that because it's chosen 69% of the time, that participants are significantly more attracted to a startup that already has revenue. So bringing this back to our plan, we plan to set the choices against existing accelerator programs in Osaka. So for example, Workspace isn't an accelerator program, but it's a place where entrepreneurs can buy like a sort of office space, whether it's a shared office space or certain offices. And so that gives us a really good base price for what we could use in the choice experiment. And then we could also use, for example, option 1 could be Plug and Play Japan, where they have pitch coaching and amenities like workspace, workrooms, and even parking spaces and free refreshments. We can also set it against TEQS Software Industry Plaza, which has advertising and PR support, technical seminars, sound labs, 5G labs, and more. And they also include the price of the rooms with all the other things that they add. So this gives us a great way to set option 1 in the choice experiment as something existing and seeing what things that we change for option 2. When they pick option 2, that shows us that those are the items that entrepreneurs are valuing and would pick them over existing competitors that already have business. So in our own study, we can tailor this to include features that we think are the most relevant. So for example, if you're picking between option A and option B, this is what it's going to go out and look like to the entrepreneurs. Some key areas that we're focusing on are if international entrepreneurs are interested in help finding a visa, or if it's important to connect them and give them lab space. So we can see obviously they would pick something that offers them the most items if they're not paying for it. And then when we add the price, this really allows us to determine their willingness to pay. So going forward, we will begin to set up the choice experiment and finalize the features. In January, we will send the choice experiment out to the entrepreneurs, and then after receiving the results, we'll send out the primary results back to the client, and then in the spring, we'll consolidate our findings and publish a research article. Thank you. I can open the floor up to questions.
So I'm thinking like Y Combinator is what comes to my mind.
Yes.
And it's successful. And part of the reasons people wanted to go to they had a lot of so-called like black swans, really famous big hits. So does reputation of an accelerator, maybe that's not a part of your study, but is that something that would be useful in some cases to allow the participants to select where they want to go?
It definitely does. Y Combinator is definitely the most competitive to get into, as well as there's others on the market. So luckily the accelerator that we're pairing with is pretty well known, but we're also doing the research to publish in general. And it does, but because most of them are so competitive to get into, a lot of startups will apply to multiple, and they're also in different sectors, so it kind of depends on the business and their product. So at the end of the day, it ends up being what fits for the startup to join the accelerator, but yes, I mean, more apply to the more competitive and well-known ones.
So what makes for a successful accelerator program?
Yes, so going back to your question, Y Combinator is probably the most famous accelerator program, and so their strategy was to go to top 10 schools that really have intelligent people and find their entrepreneurs that have great product ideas. So they went to Harvard and MIT, and they found a lot of students that had product ideas but didn't understand the business aspect side of things. So they were able to teach them the business aspect and how to pitch to investors. And then also Techstars is a really another common accelerator program, and they were able to pair entrepreneurs with the best investors for their goal. So those are two really common solutions.
Famous accelerators like force you to move to Silicon Valley or Boston or somewhere. Is there any issue of someone with really good ideas who lives in a rural area, or maybe someone of Japan doesn't want to move to the big city? Is there any issue of like locality and where, like the the mobility of the whole thing?
There definitely are hubs. So example, Silicon Valley is really big in tech and AI. So we're looking at how does location affect things. But for example, we're really focused on international entrepreneurs in Japan. And so we're focusing on what would bring them out there. So we're focusing on if we can connect them to international investors everywhere. But also Osaka is a hub for industrial and healthcare and tech as well. So it depends on the country.